4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to J.E.D.I Lunch Break Live, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Insights in 15 minutes or less. My name is Holly Holiday, and I am your J.E.D.I master who will be guiding you through our current series on implementing equity plans. If this is your first time joining, or if you haven't been joining us since we started discussing implementing equity plans, let me catch you up really quickly. First and foremost, you need to know that equity planning evolves in a cycle. It is cyclical. What that means is that you don't necessarily reach an end, but you repeat a cycle in which every time you take a different rotation, hopefully you're getting a little bit better until you reach your equity goals. There are 4 key parts to the cycle when you're thinking about implementing equity and inclusion plans. First, it starts with the planning itself, a crucial part. Second, the implementation. Third, monitoring and evaluation. And fourth, sustainability and scalability. Now, while we are going to take these 4 key areas of the implementing equity plan cycle in different parts, as we're discussing this, you will soon see that many of the parts are happening at the same time. So there's quite a bit of overlap, and each of these key areas in the cycle are essential to supporting each other. I make that point because perhaps you just want to focus on the implementation without thinking about the monitoring, evaluation, or the sustainability or scalability. And admittedly, you will see progress by just doing any one of these things. But if you really want to have a program that is sustainable, that is scalable, that is an integral part of how your company or organization executes on its mission, then you will be a student of all 4 cycles. All right. So this being our 3rd week, we are still in the planning cycle. Inside the planning cycle, we have 5 key areas. The first is conduct an equity assessment. This allows you to just have an evaluation in addition to collecting demographics and studying opportunities and outcomes and experiences of different groups. It also allows you to have a baseline. The baseline is important because, as I mentioned at the top, you're going to go through several cycles of implementing the plan. And each time you want to be gathering data that will be important to when we get to the monitoring and evaluation part about what you can do to get better. And also it helps you know and helps to validate that you are in fact making progress. Probably one of the biggest things and the most frequent questions that I get about people implementing equity plans is that they're not quite sure how to measure it. And measurement and assessment is critical. So that's number 1 in the planning cycle. Number 2 in the planning cycle is set a key objective, which we talked about last week extensively. Objectives also help drive what you measure. So think about this in terms of, what do you want to achieve? It's hard to go on a journey when you don't know where the destination is. Basically, without a destination, you are kind of left wandering in the wilderness. And we don't want you to be wandering in the wilderness. We want you to make an investment in your workplace culture and in equity and inclusion as a part of your business and your program that leads to substantial outcomes that help to advance your mission. That's why we're here. That's why we do what we do. So today, let's get into the 3rd thing, which will be involving stakeholders. Following involving stakeholders, next week, we'll talk about budgets. funding and resources. My business partner, Renee Redwood, always says budgets are statements of priority. So we will get into that a lot next week. And then we will wrap out our planning phase, our planning cycle area with a discussion around legal review and compliance. So today, let's deal with involving stakeholders. So, who are your stakeholders? Well, ultimately, this is going to be a key thing that you need to define. You're going to need to understand who is impacted. Now, the easy answer to this question is everybody is impacted and everybody is your stakeholder, but that's not really measurable. So here, when we're talking about stakeholders, we're not just saying everybody. What we're really saying is, where is our priority? And what you may find is, over the times that you roll through the implementation planning cycle, you will find that the priority stakeholders will evolve, and they will evolve because you will get stakeholders to a point where they no longer need to be a priority, which allows you to prioritize other stakeholders that may need that time and attention. So who could the stakeholders be? Well, again, the answer is pretty much everyone, but here are some key groups to think about. Stakeholders could be employees. They could be students. They could be community members. They could be your board members. They could be your donors. They could be your customers or consumers. They could be your leadership team. So it's anybody who has an impact on your mission. Any group of people that you would like to impact or that you are currently impact, that is your stakeholder group. So that can be a pretty large group. So within that, you need to figure out, where is your biggest pain point. I like to think first. My process is to think first about where are we having the most pain, and then where do we have the biggest opportunity. And when you think about those two questions, somewhere in the middle lies where you might want to start if you haven't already. Why do I think about the biggest pain? Well, the biggest pain is probably going to take you the longest to resolve. So even if you prioritize a different pain point area, so for instance, maybe your biggest pain point is recruitment, but the best opportunity that you have in terms of thinking about implementing equity may actually be in planning or strategy. So while you may start out in strategy because there's an opportunity there for you to advance that, i.e., maybe it's time for to start your strategic planning, or maybe it's budget season for your organization or company. And so those kinds of things may push opportunities to rise to priority level, but ultimately your crisis point is still around recruitment. So these present opportunities for us to think about doing more than one thing at one time. But it's clear that you need to understand, who are the people that we're trying to impact and the priority on those people. So once you have decided that, then you can really move into how you're going to engage them. And this is critical. You want to make sure that first of all, the whole reason why we even care about equity in the first place and inclusion in the first place is because we want to hear the voices of the people whose voices are frankly just not loud enough and who we think are valuable. So it's important that when we're launching an inclusivity plan, that we want to be intentional about including those very voices that we haven't heard from up to this point. This could include doing several things. One may be convening some sort of task force to bring them together, to have them engage with you about how to attract the stakeholder. Another could be working with people who already are part of your team. And this may be a small group at first that grows to a larger group. The other is thinking about maybe some things that you need to do to be in relationship with them. It may not be as simple as calling them up and inviting them to a meeting. It may be that there are some hurt or painful feelings that exist between you and your priority stakeholders. So you may need to acknowledge that and even apologize in order to create a space for moving forward. You have to be conscientious that if people have not engaged with you up to this point and you all have shared interests and shared values, there's probably a reason why. So you might need to spend some time asking yourself, why are we not engaged with these stakeholders? What's stopping us? What has prevented us from connecting? And the answer to that, what has prevented us from connecting, may help you find your best opportunity on what to do next. Now, let's assume you've got their attention and they are willing and ready to engage with you. That is your job is not yet done. You need to be conscientious and thinking about not just the introduction of how we work together, but again, the full cycle of how you seek to work with them over time, how you will be sustained in your support, and how you will continue to evaluate the situation so that it gets better and both parties have a good experience. You know, as an attorney, one of the negotiation methods that I trained in was the win-win negotiation style. And I like this even to this day, even in this situation, though it may not be an adversarial space for you. What it does and the approach is that you approach it as if everybody gets something. Everybody feels seen and heard. Everybody gets an equal opportunity to be impactful and to add value. And when you start with that, you're more likely to attract the very stakeholders who you want to have in your orbit and to help and let them help and guide you on how to attract others. All right. So again, we're involving stakeholders. It is people who may be impacted by the process or the program. Hopefully this has been helpful. We will continue our trek through the planning cycle. Next week, we will talk more intently about funding and resources and things that you need to think about in terms of being able to support these equity programs. Part of it is budget, but as you'll find out next week, that's some of the story, but not the whole story. My name is Holly Holiday. I have been your J.E.D.I Master this Thursday afternoon, officially afternoon, and I hope you will join us again next week. In the meantime, please like, follow, share this experience with someone else. We are all trying to create and manifest places, especially places of work, where we can feel seen and heard and do our very best in order to have a fulfilling work life. So I look forward to talking to you more next week. Until then, take care. Did you enjoy this segment of J.E.D.I Lunch Break Live? I'll be back next Thursday. Come on back and bring a friend.